Motion Talks is a Hyper Island student project that aims to map the motion design industry and help us students find our place in it. Even if not visible, we have the motion design class of 22 as a live audience. Our first guest is Morten Niklasson. Morten is a Swedish motion designer who started his journey as an intern at CUB Studios, an animation studio in London where he quickly progressed to junior designer. Currently, he works as a motion designer and art director at Vertiseit, a Swedish retail tech company that creates digital solutions for businesses. He's also a Hyper Island alumni. Welcome back, Morten.
Thank you very much.
So you started studying at Hyper Island in 2015 with no previous experience in motion design. How did you get so good so fast?
I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you very much.
Tell us your secrets.
I'm not sure. And also, I'm now that you're asking, I'm thinking like, did I have no experience at all? But you know, my reason for starting Hyper Island was I wanted to. I always liked making films. And just filming amateur stuff, right, like really silly things. But I started at Hyper Island with an idea to keep creating movies, but adding some graphic elements to it. So I think that when I started, I had some kind of like timing thinking in my head, like how to edit things and cut it properly to make it look nice and make it feel nice. And I also edited some skateboarding movies where timing is pretty essential as well. So I think that helped out a little bit, at least, to get the timing of things and just getting a good flow of stuff. But I didn't know animation in that sense. So that's what I discovered at Hyper Island. But I don't know what my secrets are, really.
We want to know, like, what potions do you do? Morning yoga? No. What did you end up, specializing in? Like, how quickly did you find that motion design is in the form you're doing it now? How did you find it out? Like, what to do?
I think when starting at Hyper, that you probably all know this, that there's so much going on, there's so much information and so much to learn. And the way that I sorted this out was that me and my friend Johannes Fast and a friend of ours, Tan, who I haven't talked to in a while, but it doesn't matter. The three of us like starting our own little studio after like 3 or 4 months, maybe. Where we're just like, if we're gonna learn anything, we will have to do this on our own. Like there's a lot, the only thing we can't get on our own is all the workshops and all the lectures. Like we need to go on that to learn that as well. But the actual hard skills, we have to do a lot of that on our own. So we started our own little studio and came up with little ideas like, let's just animate this and this and this. And at some point we came up with this, well, we didn't come up with the idea, but we did a 30 days of animation thing and forced ourselves to create something every day and put that on Instagram to push ourselves to actually create something. And while doing that, I discovered that the fastest way for me to produce something like this is to do it in After Effects, because I can start doing creating elements or assets that I can reuse over and over and start implementing that and just figure out that if I can do that in After Effects, then maybe I could be able to do anything on After Effects, really. And that's how I started to liking After Effects more than anything else, really.
We have also realized that we need to learn that motion design students have to work pretty hard for their hard skills, because we're only studying for 1.5 years, and a lot of our lectures are a lot of it's hard skills too, but a lot of soft skills. A lot of things that are super important, but if you really want to learn what you want to learn, you need to put in the hours after school. So this is a really good idea to kind of latch together and make these challenges for yourself. And 3 months in, that's pretty good job.
I might exaggerate, but we started in August 2015, and this was during November or something. So August, September, October. Yeah, 3 or 4 months in, I think that's when we started doing it.
We also have these methodologies that we learn in Hyper Island, like the reflection and all this kind of stuff, like well of knowledge and how to work in teams and self-leadership. When jumping into the professional world, have you continued using these teachings?
No. I haven't.
Why not?
I don't know. But it's coming back to me more and more because the more like time passes, the more I'm thinking about getting into freelancing on full time. And in order to do that, I need a lot, like to figure out a lot of stuff, and like figuring out what my good sides and bad sides are. Like what can I do better? What can I work on? And so I've started reflecting a bit more lately. But the places that I've worked at, I haven't really felt the need or felt that it is a place for me to come up with, like, mention these things. It's really strange. I mean, I probably could, but it's just something that is holding me back at the places that I've worked at.
It's interesting, like sometimes you think that it's Hyper Islands everybody says they're very hireable. And I think this is a reason to why maybe Hyper Island students are wanted in the workplace, is because we have these, like, not because we reflect a lot, but that we kind of have an active learning experience and applying learnings into action and this kind of stuff. But maybe it's just so seeped into your brain, so you don't even know what's reality and what's hyper in your subconscious.
No, but I know a lot of people who has done that, and there are like studios where Hyper Island students I went to that they have started applying these things, reflections, and doing some practices, and that I've just ended up at places where we don't. And maybe I've haven't been confident enough to introduce it, maybe.
But would you say that the methodologies you learn in Hyper Island could improve in any way the workplace you were in, or do you felt like when you were working there, they had their own methodologies and they seemed to work there?
I think that the last thing you said there, that they had their own way of doing things. Like if I were to mention Cobb Studio, which is a pretty small studio, and it was pretty much just everything was just decided by the two guys who runs it, and that's just the way it was. Like there was no time for. I think it would have been, maybe not, but I like when I think about it, it's like it might have been weird for me to be like, hey, maybe we should take a break from this project and just reflect on what we're doing. I'm not trying to make fun of the methodologies, but
I know, but it's funny to talk about it still. I mean, of course you can't go in and be like, hello, let's reflect people, but
and when they're bringing in projects and they need to bring in money as well, it's like, no, this goes against what I'm feeling right now, so I'm not going to do it. It's like you have to find, especially when starting out, you have to like start knowing the place before you can start adding these kind of things. But then again, that creates like the opposite thing, that if you start adapting to a studio, then you forget where you came from, maybe. I mean, that could be a risk as well. So it's probably some kind of balance thing. Or something.
You did your internship at CUB Studios. That's an animation studio in Brighton. How did you land that internship?
Well, I think it was a bit of luck, actually. Maybe I had my creativity had something to do with it. But when we started looking for internships, like our final project that we did at Hyper Island, I think we had a little bit more freedom than what you guys have right now, because our class was the first 2-year motion class, so it was a lot of experimenting on what works and what doesn't. So our final project during that I could make my own portfolio and my show reel. I didn't have to adapt that to some kind of storyline or doing everything, all the scripting and the sketches and the storyboarding and that. I could just do my show reel and portfolio. So I put a lot of time on doing that and applied for. I had a list of maybe 20 to 30 studios, and I applied for not all of them, but a lot on that list, with sending out emails. And in that email was like a short presentation of myself and then something that I liked about that specific studio, and then attach my show reel to it, and also a small little GIF of my own face, which is like an outline GIF with these what do you call that? The Bezier handles that were just pulling my face. Different,
smart.
like pulling my beanie and my beard. I've always had a beard, by the way. Like I was born with this, in case anyone wonders.
So your silhouette is clear.
Yeah. So I did that just to have some kind of like drag their attention to my mail. Like they see it, maybe they don't start reading it, but they see the GIF, and they're like, "Oh, interesting." So.
You see, you have this on your website right now. You have like Morten Niklasson small animation, like with a ball. And I realized that this kind of stuff. You actually said this in our lecture, that it's good to put some sort of short GIF in your email to kind of just quickly show them that you're capable of motion design.
Exactly. And that signature logo, I use that in my emails as well. And I think I stole that idea, not stole it, but copied it from B. Grandinetti, because she had,
we had
a bumblebee.
Yeah. We had her as a lecturer. She was great.
She's great. But yeah, so I sent that out to different studios. But Cobb, when applying to that place, they had this form that you fill out. It was not personal at all. Just like, who are you? I am Morten. What do you do? I study at Hyper Island. Do you have our show reel? Yes. Post a link here. Cool. So I didn't get that personal email sent out to them. And then, like, they weren't the only ones that replied, but I was like, I really like Cobb, and they do a lot of cool stuff. It's like, I'm not going to get this. That's like too formal of an email. Like, it's not going to be interesting. But they recently had Lynn Fritz had been working there as well, and she, I think, left CUB Studios around the same time that I applied. So they needed someone, and I happened to just send them an email at that time, and they were like, "Oh, an intern? That's going to be cheap." I'm not sure they thought that, but this is just how I interpret it in my head. It's like, let's get an intern instead. So they were like, "So we're on internship? Yeah, let's Skype," and then we Skyped, and that was pretty much it.
They saw your beard and they were like, yes.
Yeah.
Let's go. So that's why you send a lot of messages, is because you don't know who needs who, like at what moment, I guess.
And, even like some studios had like, we're looking for an intern, and that's a good opportunity. And sometimes you just send it out and hope for the best. I think I had, except for Cobb, I had like maybe four interviews from different studios, 4 or 5, and some were like, we're too, like, we would love to have you, but we like physically don't have room for you because our studio is too small.
So many of our class think about applying an internship at an animation studio, and we're really interested in what a day-to-day looks like. What did it look like at Cobb?
It was and let's see if I can remember this. It was coming into work, and we had like we were only 5 people at the time, and we only had a short talk, like what are on the Monday, like what are people working on, and then Fraser Davidson, who is the owner of the company and also the creative director and art director and everything. Then he could be like, just divide us up into separate things, or like make us, or like put us into working in smaller teams, like 1 or 2 people. And sometime if it was stressful, just like you 3 work on that same thing. So which is like Monday starting out with deciding who does what and making sure everything is on track. and see what needs help with and what not. And then if we had a storyboard that needed to be done, we did that, like do the illustrations, put together a storyboard. And Fraser was always overlooking everything and making sure everything was right. And then sending that to the client, and back and forth, doing changes. And it was like basically illustrating and animating a lot. And then we had, when we occasionally timed that to voiceover, or adding sound to that. So it could be either we all worked on one thing, like one big thing together, or we did work on separate things, like several small things simultaneously. Sometimes a project could be just 1 week, like really tight. Sometimes it could be 2 months. Sometimes it could be 2 weeks. Like it was a lot of different projects. Even, the animation could be 10 seconds, it could be 30, it could be 2-3 minutes, it could be social media, it could be just up on Vimeo or YouTube.
There's a certain project you did for NHL. You said that it was your first big project for CUB Studios.
It's the not the NHL, but the NFL.
Oh, damn.
The National Football.
Yeah, so NFL.
Yep.
Would you care to share us a little bit about the process for this project and the end result?
Yep, we could. Should we look at it and then we can just go through it?
Let's.
Here we go. This is the very first thing I worked at CUB, from day one. Like the first day I arrived there. This is the one.
While guys like Joe Montana and Tom Brady are busy winning championships on Super Bowl Sunday, the rest of us are eating a lot. Americans eat more food on this unofficial holiday than any other day beside Thanksgiving. More than 3.6 million kilos of guacamole are consumed on Super Bowl Sunday, alongside more than 13,000 metric tons of potato chips. It's a tough day for chickens, as 1.25 billion wings are consumed. And that's in addition to about 13 million kilos of snacks, including 1.7 million kilos of popcorn. And to wash it all down, 50 million cases of beer are sold during Super Bowl week. No wonder 6% of all Americans call in sick for work the next day.
Ba-da-ba-bam.
How long did you work on this project?
I don't remember.
So years ago.
Yeah, it was years ago. Well, it was, when was it? It's not that long ago, 2017, January 2017, maybe. So.
What programs did you use for the animation?
After Effects. All the assets and illustrations are done in Illustrator, and then everything is animated in After Effects. And I also had some help from Alex Coella, who was my colleague at the time, who has done some of the animations as well.
Did you work with a storyboard for this?
So the way that we work at CUB is that when doing like the storyboards, so Fraser Davidson, he sets the style of it. Like, this is what it's going to look like. Now make a storyboard using all these assets. So when doing the storyboard, we also do the setup for each scene. So one storyboard scene could be this, and then all these things are all layered and done for that scene. And this scene and this scene, and then when the client approves that, we can just open up each scene in After Effects immediately and start animating it, because everything is already done. So the storyboard is actually the illustration files that we work in.
Oh, okay.
So we never send any sketches or anything like this. It might look like this, because Fraser was just like, this is the style we're going for, and just do storyboards using this style and these colors and send it. And then that would be really clear for the client that this is what it's going to look like. Like, there's nothing to maybe this or this. Like, this is it. And when I think about it now, it was mainly to save time, to be able to produce these things. Because Super Bowl, we did a lot of different animations about the Super Bowl, like the halftime shows and about the rules and watching the TV and then the food. So we had, I think it was like 3 weeks to do all of these animations. So we saved a lot of time on doing it that way. And at least at the time, that's how we always did it at CUB. Like we found a style, we did the illustrations for that immediately and made a storyboard out of it.
You save a lot of time when you do that, and then they can, you don't show a Pinterest board and they're like,
exactly.
Yeah. And then 1 month later, they're like, what is this?
Yeah.
This doesn't look like this board at all.
No, exactly. No, and so each scene was like when it was done in Illustrator, we exported it into separate, storyboard scenes in a PDF, and we sent a PDF with everything, and then we could use that and import it to After Effects and Illustrator, animate it. So that was what we did, and that was what we did, and just and since CUB had been working for the NFL for quite some time, they didn't have much to say about it really, because they were happy with the style and they knew like, yeah, this is going to be good because they've been doing this for some time, so it was fine. But to me, it was really stressful. Like I got to work, like day one, I got to work, which is like 15 minutes of introduction, like, welcome, Morten, I'm Ben, I'm taking care of the planning and the money. This is Fraser Davidson, the creator of the company and an animation god. And this is your colleagues, Pavelas and Alex. Oh, hey guys, now work. Well, not that harsh, but it felt like it. And then you're sitting down and Fraser was just like, so here's what we're gonna do. We have an idea for this food thing for Super Bowl. Just follow my instructions and my guidelines and the style and just create all the assets for it. And then we'll send it to the client. And it was, I had not tons of knowledge in Illustrator and After Effects, and I had no idea how they used the programs, because that's a thing as well, like companies use it differently. So I just had to freestyle a lot and just try to get it done with. And Fraser, he didn't say it out loud, but he wasn't too happy with my way of working. But that also is like, I have just to get this done. So he kind of understood it. But then as time went on, I realized there are I need to figure out how CUB is doing their work in order to be able to do this properly and be able to work as a team player. So whenever we had a new project, I was like asking Fraser, how do you do this? How do you do this? I had tons of questions. And he was working simultaneously as he was trying to teach me how to do things. So he was slightly annoyed at times. But then I had Alex and Pavelas, my colleagues, who were gladly helped me out a lot as well. So it was a lot of trial and error on doing this. It was stressful, but it was really fun. And like I learned just from this animation, I learned using the camera movements and setting things in different depth to get more depth feel to when the camera zooms in and zooms out. And Fraser was like, things should never be completely still. Like even when it's still, the camera is still moving to make it look interesting. And it was always like, what could possibly happen in here? Like when that happens, what could happen here? What could happen there? He was always thinking, like, taught me how to think, like, what can happen? What's the next thing that can happen? When these pop up, what happens? How many of these can you use? What happens with the feathers? How do we zoom in here? What happens here? The clouds are moving, the car comes in. It was always like constantly challenging me on how can things always move? How can you always animate things?
Also like secondary actions, but also like story-wise, what happens when?
Yeah. So when it hits that, how can like that number become a percentage bum thing instead? Now I guess people who will listen to this, if someone is just going to listen, it's going to be weird if they're not seeing this. But and also this the chickens popping up was my short claim to fame. This was my very first GIF I uploaded on Dribble, and the first GIF I uploaded working at CUB, and then I felt some kind of recognition, like, oh man, cool stuff. You're working at CUB? Oh, that's so cool. And that's the first time I felt like shit, like things that I create can actually reach out to people, and they can actually people can actually like what I'm doing. It was a weird feeling, but it also pushed me to keep creating stuff, I guess.
That's what you also freelance. So a lot of freelancers I know, they have Instagrams, or they have to have very active Instagrams where they kind of get this feedback loop. But do you feel that you get it more as a freelancer or when you work at a studio?
The thing is that it was much easier to do that while working at a studio, especially at Cobb, because they had that as a that was a thing for them to promote themselves as well. So whenever we did an animation, they were like, they told me to pick out 2 or 3 scenes that we can make a loop of, and then we can make GIFs of that and upload that to Instagram or Dribble to just promote things. So in a sense, I uploaded that on my own account, but that also linked to Cobb's account, or they could link it back and forth. So it created, a stream of viewers for both of us. I've been really bad at doing that as a freelancer. Even if I've been working and stuff, it's been like, just because I've been freelancing on the side, like I work full time, then I freelance on the weekends or the nights, and then it's just like when I'm done, I really need to rest. So that's why I haven't been publishing things on Instagram, for example, which I'm constantly thinking about. Like I need to get that going as well.
But can you just get the jobs through word of mouth? But do you actually need an Instagram as a freelancer? I know it's like a modern question, like of course you need one, but I don't think you necessarily maybe need one if you have clients,
No, maybe not. But I think that a lot of the clients that I work for as a freelancer, they are clients that have been coming back to me since first reaching out to them. And I know that I got in contact with them while I was still living in England and working at Cobb. And Cobb was in London at the time. I know it's in Brighton now, but I was in London at the time. Oh. So I got in contact with a lot of these companies when I was in London, and I'm still in touch with them. So they keep bringing me work occasionally. So it might be just in that case, it's a combination of, I was more active and I could show them Instagram as well. Now I pretty much, when I reach out to someone, if I see something that's interesting or someone asks me, I refer to my portfolio, or I send them like recent projects that are not on my portfolio, and I can send them like, I recently did this, just showing them recent projects. But since I am working full-time, freelancing haven't been my priority, so I haven't been chasing work. And that might be a reason why I'm not updating my Instagram, for example. If I were to do this full-time, then I think I would focus a lot more on my own marketing.
I mean, that's a full-time job, basically marketing yourself. Yeah. It's like we were just talking about, screen management in everyday life, that you need to make sure to rest. Yeah. Otherwise, everybody works forever, and that's not a good thing.
No.
Mia and Morten, this has been super interesting conversation so far, but maybe we can take some questions from the class.
Yes.
So Hole asks, I'm really into 2D character animation. In terms of getting into the industry, do you think it's better to learn Toon Boom Harmony or stick to the Adobe workflow, or focus on both?
This is a question that I think is really difficult to answer, because coming into the industry, or how do I phrase this answer? There are so many different tools and so many different ways of working that no tool is the right one. I think it depends on what you want to do. Like for me, I'm constantly thinking that everything is possible to do in After Effects. So I keep working on that, but I like at the back of my head, I know that maybe I should try to learn something new as well. I know like a lot of companies are using Toon Boom and using Adobe Animate or just different tools. It's just that Adobe is such a big company and so many studios are using it that it's, I think, the most common used softwares. But if I think that the softwares you're using might not matter as long as you're good at it. If you know what you're doing and are good at the animation and illustrations, then I think you can probably figure out how to work with others, even if you have different softwares. And I know that some softwares are even starting to implement Adobe what do you call it, file structure as well. You can save, if you're using Procreate, you can save that as Photoshop files, and you can use Photoshop files when animating in After Effects. And I think you can use, what's it called? Affinity Designer and save that as illustration, Adobe, what do you call it? Illustrator files as well. Yeah. So they are, softwares and companies are integrating with each other more and more, and it's becoming more and more common to do that. So it's more of a finding what suits you the most and utilizing that the best way you can, rather than trying to learn everything or figuring out what's the most convenient for the studios you end up at. And also, like, when you start to know how to animate things, it doesn't matter what software you use, you kind of like understand. If you start working in new software, you know how it should look and how it should move, and then you just try to figure out the software. And that, once you get a hang of one software, at least to me, but I think once you get a hang of one software, you kind of figure out the other softwares quite easily, because you know how you want things to appear.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question, Ole?
Yes, so Ole says yes, and thanks. Ellen asks, how do you reach out to people you wish to have as a client as a freelancer?
Good question. Since I've reached out to studios more than brands in that sense. And I think I've just emailed them and just checked, hey, what's up? I'm a freelancer and I have some time. I have some time to spare. I've seen what you do, and maybe we could collaborate at some point in time, and check out my portfolio if it sounds interesting. So it's really tricky. To me, since I've always been working full-time when I'm been freelancing, I never felt the pressure to reach out. I do it just for fun. So I never felt the pressure that I need to perform as a freelancer yet. I think it's going to come to me soon. But it's just like that safety or that comfort in knowing that I still have a full-time job. It's just making me feel less pressure, and just like, hello, this is me. I don't put too much energy into it. With that said, it's I don't pretend like I don't care, because I do. Like, I find studios and I want to collaborate with them, so I have to say that. But it's just a matter of just trying and not being too confident. I think being humble is a key word here, and just being like, hey, I'm animating and maybe you like my stuff. I don't know, but it would be nice to collaborate. I also use the word collaborate a lot rather than just hire me or something. Like, I want to do that as a team player with you guys.
Noted.
Yeah. And just not more praising them and just asking them if they would like to collaborate with you. Yeah. It's a tricky question, and some companies might not even like that, and some companies do. some companies would just want you to, hey, just say what you want, man.
But that's great advice still. I wouldn't have thought about, like, you need to focus on them, not so much on you, because your showreel anyway speaks for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So trying to like find any type of necessity or try to understand their business in some way, and then just saying we're available in a way. Yeah, that's nice. Melinda also asks if you have any tips to how to present yourself, looking for jobs, being confident when you don't have so much experience in the beginning in this industry.
And what was the question? How I present that?
How should you present yourself? Where should you look for jobs? How do you like sell yourself? Not to say this, but like when you're so new and you still need a lot of experience in this.
That much. Like my journey has been, Hyper Island, and then luckily ending up at Cobb as an intern, and then just learning tons at Cobb, and then staying there for almost 2 years. And before moving back to Sweden, I applied for work at Vertiseit, where I'm at right now, and moved home and got that job. And it's been a pretty streamlined journey for me so far. And as I mentioned, like I want to go full-time freelance at some point, but I haven't taken that step yet. So I haven't really putting too much time into doing that.
Can I ask why do you want to go full-time freelance?
I think that's where I get the most out of my creativity. To me, you can get that at a company as well, but even at Cobb, which is a pretty creative company, you still have to adapt to, at Cobb at least, it's Fraser Davidson and his style and what he wants to do. Like that's his child in a sense, and you would have to, present that all the time. It has to look the way that he kind of imagines it, or the way it looks like when he started it. And at Vertiseit, it's the same thing. Like there's always someone you need to answer to in a way. And you will have to do that as a freelancer as well. But at least then that would be my own choice to do that. And I just would love to, at some point, also start my own studio, and I think maybe start freelancing to begin with, just to figure out how that works properly. Like I have insights in it, but since I haven't done it full time, I can't tell the entire story. I can only tell it from my perspective, which is part-time freelancer. But no, I haven't used LinkedIn that much. I have a LinkedIn account, but that's one of the things as well. Like I need to start updating my Instagram, my LinkedIn, and start. My idea is to start to get all these things rolling, so that when I want to go freelancing, I'm gonna, go into it and be able to work immediately. I'm too scared to just jump out into the unknown and hope for the best. Like I right now I feel like I want some kind of safety. Maybe that is the wrong way to go, but that's just how I feel at the moment.
I think that's a lot. I think that's a lot of people thinking about freelancing feel like it's, of course, a lot of people want also the safety. It's hard to balance, like my artistry or safety, like art or money. We talk about this all the time at Hyper, and nobody has yet given us a direct answer because it's not so easy.
No, it is really tricky. Like I wish I had like the answer for you, because I was looking for that as well when I was.
Go for the money. No.
I mean, you could do that. You need money to live, right? And some people choose creativity. Some people choose they're in for the money.
I'm gonna be creative under a bridge. You can do both. I guess you should do both. Try both.
Try to find a nice balance.
Yeah.
A former colleague of mine, Daniel Isedal, he was working at Vertiseit as well, and he went to Hyper Island and graduated 2 years ahead of me, I think. But now we worked at Vertiseit. But he left to work at another place quite recently, but it didn't work out. So he was kind of just pushed in to start freelancing and, you know, got kind of forced into doing that. And he's doing pretty fine right now. He was just like, that's what I'm going to do now. Like, I got nothing else. And like, I might as well try it. And now he's doing pretty good. Like, he was really, like, he took that, I can't say failure, but it took that opportunity to turn that into something good. Like being like, it doesn't work at this company. And then you just like turn it around in a short time and you started creating, and now he's freelancing full time. So, I mean, different things happen to different people, and that to him was just like, he was pushed into doing it and that worked out for him. Maybe that works for someone else as well. Maybe that would happen to me as well. I don't know. But I'm a sucker for safety, I guess.
Who isn't?
Yeah.
But that's so interesting. Like, do you have any more questions, Gonzalo, still from the class? Do we have time?
No, I don't have any more questions. Maybe we can start wrapping up this amazing conversation with Morten.
Time is flying.
Yeah, this went way faster than I would have ever expected.
It feels like been talking for just 15 minutes or something.
Yeah. But
I'm not even sure I answered everything properly. Like, I just it feels like I've just been talking nonsense.
We can do a part 2 when you're when you're doing freelancing full time, and then you can have a comeback to Motion Talks.
Yeah.
But it's been a delight to have you here, Morten. And
I've
thank you
been
for your
delighted to be
time.
here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
It was great.